Hey, Kim, Jill, can you guys hear me?
I can hear you, Austin.
Great.
I can hear you, Austin.
Great. We're waiting for everybody to get in the room, but we'll start in just a few minutes.
Thank
Hi, Kim.
you. Hi, Jill.
I'm ready when, you guys ready? Yep, good to go. Waiting on me, sweetheart. Waiting on the mayor. All right. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to open up the Village Council Budget Work Session meeting, March 11, 2025. Show the time at 5:01. Show we have a quorum and a full quorum if we count the Zoomers that are coming in, right?
Mr. Mayor, you've got Kim and Jill, and you should have Wayne now on.
Wayne,
So you do have a full
alright.
quorum.
So it looks like we have them, so I'll need a motion before we get going to consider allowing a remote participation.
So moved.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that passes. Next up, we have adoption agenda. Do we have any changes to the agenda for this meeting?
No, sir.
Hearing none, I'll need a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Next up, budget work session. Who might have this, Christine?
I'll take it, unless Jill wants to take it from the phone.
All right.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I wanted to go over some preliminary numbers with you guys, but before I start, I do want to read a little bit of a long disclaimer, so I apologize in advance. Also wanted to let you know that I have a couple of handouts at your chair. One of them is the statute for the eligibility of funds for Powellville. We've heard a couple of times that even at a revenue neutral rate, we cannot go below 5 cents based on the allowance of Powellville dollars, and that statute is there at your table. I've also got the Union County tax rates. There's a slew of different tax rates with Union County, so you can see those. Those are obviously for the current year that we're in. They're not for their upcoming fiscal year, but they're in the current year that we're in now. And then the fire district tax rates for Wesley Chapel, which is where Marvin sits. And then I've got a little handout for you all on revenue neutral tax rates from the School of Government, in case you want to read that on your own leisure. That being said, if you don't mind, I'm just going to read this statement that I've kind of tried to prepare before we go into the budget work session. This is, as you know, a revaluation year with Union County. It's a little bit confusing, and I know it's going to be confusing for residents as well. So Jill and I have sat down and tried to come up with something that we think can help to explain it the best that we can. So just bear with me while I read this, if you don't mind. For budgeting purposes, when presenting a balanced budget, there are different types of revenues to consider: real and personal property taxes, sales tax, service fees and permits, etc. Two major types of revenues derived from taxpayers that are affected by the tax rate include ad valorem, which is real property, i.e. your home, and then personal property taxes, which include your cars, your boats, your RVs, airplanes, trailers, some mobile homes that don't have foundations, etc. Both types of properties are multiplied by the tax rate of the municipality, and that's how we derive the revenue that we receive from real and personal property taxes. As you know, this year, Union County is conducting a revaluation of property values. While real property is the only valuation assessment, meaning, I should have read this a little bit better. While real property is the only valuation assessment, municipal revenues are affected by personal property valuation changes as well. Basically, this means the only thing that the county's looking at is your real property. They're not assessing how much your cars, your RVs, and all that stuff is worth. They're only looking at your homes and your land. North Carolina municipalities are obligated to present a revenue-neutral tax rate as a part of their budget process, in accordance with General Statute 15911E. That statute basically defines that revenue-neutral tax rate is the rate that is estimated to produce revenue for the next fiscal year equal to the revenue that would have been produced for the next fiscal year by the current tax rate if no valuation had occurred. That statute instructs the revenue-neutral rate to be calculated as follows. Number one, determine what the rate would be to have produced revenues equal to that produced for the current fiscal year. Number two, increase that rate by the growth factor equal to the average annual percentage increase of the tax base due to improvements since the last general revaluation, which is estimated around 2 to 3% for the last 5 years, and then adjust the rate to account for any annexation, de-annexation, or similar events. That said, it's important to note that while some properties may show an increase, other properties may show a decrease. And this could change, this could basically reflect that your tax bill could show an increase or decrease based on a revenue-neutral rate, depending on how it individually shakes out for you as an individual property owner. In addition, Union County has an effective rate for fiscal year 24-25 at around 58 cents per hundred. And they have an array of rates. It includes their general fund. They have a debt fund, an education operating fund, an education debt fund, and then an economic development fund. They all have different rates, and you have those in front of you. They're actually on the Union County website as well. Additionally, Village of Marvin taxpayers will also see a special fire district of around 4 cents for the Wesley Chapel district. So any of those rates that we just mentioned would also affect the taxpayer's tax bill in the upcoming year. So if anything changes with Union County or any of those fire district tax, that would also see a respective increase or decrease in addition to what Village of Marvin does. All that to say that individual properties will see increases or decreases based on those aforementioned rates and how their individual property valuations showed a decrease or an increase, whatever that percentage was. As we saw at the Union County presentation that was about a week and a half ago, Marvin looked like they had a 68% increase across Marvin's jurisdiction. Some will be more, some will be less. If a revenue-neutral rate is obtained for budgetary purposes, residents can likely see a decrease in their personal property values. It's also important to note that the numbers that we hear tonight are also very preliminary. We're still waiting for the total tax relief deductions, veteran, disabled, and elderly exclusions, and then also any appeals that might take place in the next couple of weeks. So we will have a definitive number by Union County in the next couple of weeks. So everything that we see tonight is based on very preliminary numbers. We've projected what we currently think is a revenue neutral rate, and you'll see that here reflective tonight. It may go up slightly based on what numbers we get back from the county once we get the actual numbers again. So I just want to reiterate, everything you see is completely preliminary. Nothing is set in stone. That being said, there may be a few questions that people have. Does a revenue neutral only affect real property? Does it only affect their house? No, as I mentioned before, it is based on all taxable property, so the revaluation of the real property is what triggers the revenue neutral, but the calculation of our revenue is based on all property, so that's real and personal. When calculating the average annual increase, can Marvin just assume the assessed value for each year? No, Marvin has to look at the final assessed value at the end of the fiscal year to calculate the growth, and that's what we estimated, around 2 to 3%. We also have included annexations into those growth models, and you will see that revenue neutral projection worksheet at your next budget work session, and that's when we'll have final numbers back from the county. And then, why will some taxpayers face an increase even if a revenue neutral rate is adopted? Again, going back to what I mentioned about the personal property, typically, if there's, the way that the property valuations work is it's only based on your real property, but the municipality has to look at the revenue as a whole. So the revenue neutral is for the village as a whole, not individual property owners. Some will see a decrease, likely some may see an increase depending on how their individual assessment shook out. Aside from that, if anyone has any questions, they're more than welcome to email Jill or I, and we can work them through the process of understanding the revenue neutral a little bit better. I also have a handout from School of Government that explains it in more detail. It's about 10 pages, but this is what you have at your desk. You guys are more than welcome to share this if you want to, or if any residents would like to see it, they're more than welcome to request it. That being said, Jill, did you have anything else you wanted to say about any of that?
No, I think that about covers it, just that I'm looking forward to get finalized numbers from the county, and by the April 8th meeting, a lot of these preliminary estimates should be a little bit more formalized, and we'll be able to go from there, but I think we're in a good spot so far.
Does anybody have any questions before we actually jump into the budget? Okay. All right, so I'm going to do a really high-level overview. A lot of stuff you guys saw at your retreat in terms of capital projects. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about that. If you look at the draft budget, just the overview page, the revenue and expenditure is around let's see. You see one proposed column that says proposed 5.03. Do you guys see that? And then you see a separate one that says proposed 5.3. When we were doing these estimates initially, we thought the revenue neutral was going to be somewhere in there, in between those two. It may be slightly higher based on some numbers we just got back from the county, so it's going to be close to what we're presenting here in front of you. That being said, there's a few different options I wanted to show you, mainly it being us cutting certain things and then adding some things in for capital improvements in the year after next year. So I guess I'll just have conversation based on the 5.03, which is the first column, where you'll see a negative 71,000. You see that in red at the bottom? Okay, so that basically means if we go what we have projected at revenue neutral today, we're at a negative 71,000. We'd have to basically appropriate some money in fund balance to balance the budget. At a 5.3, which is a very slight increase, that's where we would be balanced completely without additional fund balance. So let's go ahead and flip over. The next page basically breaks down all the ad valorem taxes, your unrestricted intergovernmental taxes, POW bill, permits and fees, sales and service, investment funds. So POW bill numbers were derived from the fiscal year 25 payments. We pretty much made that stable. Obviously, you all know that we're trying to get the roads for certain percentage of Marvin Creek, Davey, help me out, Ennisbrook, Woodcliff, and also Stacy Highway. So a little bit of increase that we may see in POW bill. However, as you all know, a couple years ago, we tried to get it done before the July 1st. It didn't work out, so we're trying to maintain a stable number there just in case. We have a couple more dollars in the investment funds based on some changes that we've made to how we're investing those idle funds. And then you'll see a transfer from other funds for POW bill of around $221,000, and this covers majority of what you're going to see in the transportation budget here shortly. And then we also have a $100,000 fund balance for the 5.3 and the 5.03. And Jill, step in and correct me if I say anything wrong in anything.
The only thing is the $221,000 transfer in from other funds, about 211 of that is Powell bill. The rest is from fund balance assigned for village signs to move forward with some wayfinding designs. But other than that, everything else is spot on.
Does anybody have any questions on revenues in particular before we move on? Everything's pretty much stable from previous years. Okay, we'll go ahead and move over to general fund. You have your general expenses for staff salaries, stipends, related benefits. We do have a projected 3.5 COLA. Again, we won't have those numbers back definitively until the league's assessment comes back for their study, and we'll kind of reflect what that has, but right now that's what we have in there. Retirement has gone up very slightly for this year. It's a requirement from NC Ligers. That's something that we can't change. As you all heard at the last meeting, our insurance provider has changed. We do not currently have a new provider. Jill and I are working through those details to get something in place before the end of the fiscal year. So we have projected a 10% increase in related benefits here, just because we don't know until we actually get rates back. But for now, that's what we have projected. Sorry, I'm just looking at some of the notes here. Okay, moving over to, we have all of our legal and consulting miscellaneous line items, accounting, auditor, our computer consultant, which has changed this past year. We're currently under a new contract with a new vendor for computer consulting. Our previous guy retired, so that number has pretty much stayed the same. However, we may see some slight increases in next year. We have not budgeted for that, but that is currently there, sitting as it has been in previous years. We have lowered the legal and auditor expenses just slightly based on what we've seen come in this current year. And the next column is going to be all of your associated fees and dues for like clerk association dues, and then we have league dues, we have the COG dues and that kind of stuff, Chamber of Commerce, those kind of things. And then we have an election year, obviously, so that election cost is budgeted in. We did obtain that quote from Union County, so that should be pretty solid. And then we have an array of general operating expenditures, insurance, branding, meals, mileage, postage, that kind of material. You all did hear from, I think it was Austin in the retreat, about the kind of branding logo that was similar to what Locust had in their kind of foyer area. That was put in the budget for around $6,000, and subsequently we did cut that at the administrative level, so that is not reflective in this budget that you're seeing here. You'll see the cut there. Flipping the page over, one of the things you also saw was a lot of software presentation to cut down on some of our hard storage. We still have to keep some things stored, but Austin presented a solution to you all for a software called Laserfish that was supposed to kind of make things a little more efficient for staff. That was around $17,000 in the CIP with a subsequent $10,000 annual operating increase. So you see your software cost there with a deduction of $10,000 because we did cut the $17,000 out of Laserfish, which in turn cut that $10,000 out of software. Everything else for other software expenses pretty much remains stable. We did have, over the last couple of years, some ARPA funds to pay for some of the software that we've had over the years, some of the financial software, and then some of the eScribe software for maintaining the platforms that you guys are looking at your devices now. This is the first year we've had to pay for most of that in our budget, so we have an increase just associated with having to front that now in the operating and not ARPA. Does anybody have any questions on that? Okay, and then we have our debt service payments and interest, electricity, and then just related occupancy expenses. We did move a lot of this stuff over to Public Works because they're now managing facilities, so we wanted to make that budget reflective of that where that management was. And then the general government CIP cost, you'll see that deduction of $17,000. And then we've kept computers and related equipment and just miscellaneous furniture and software in there. We do need a new fireproof cabinet. Jill, remind me what that $10,000 is for the CIP. I don't remember off the top of my head.
That's for the wayfinding engineering.
Okay, thank you. This is the wayfinding phase 1, which is just the engineering piece of coming up with basically the design of how the signs are supposed to look. And that is funded, Jill, correct me if I'm wrong, but that is funded with a fund balance appropriation from a specific line item that we had for signage. So it's...
Yes, it's reflective on the revenue page. It's part of that 221,000 that we talked about. And we had a fund balance that we've been carrying for a few years now that was committed to being spent on improvements to village signs. So we've decided to use that fund balance to move forward with the design and engineering and plans for some wayfinding signs.
Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, I do notice under furniture, office equipment, it goes from 1,500 to 7,500. Is there anything specific in there that makes it go up that much?
There is. We have decided that we needed another fireproof safe. The one that Austin has is full, so that's the difference there. It's about a $5,000 fireproof safe.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, moving over to planning and zoning. Again, you'll see your respective staff salary and related benefits. Again, the benefits are at a 10% increase. We hopefully will see a decrease, but we have that there just in case. Our engineering cost is pretty stable. You do see a slight decrease. Hunter is proposing a new solution to doing some engineering purposes. And at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter from a philosophical standpoint. It doesn't really matter from a financial standpoint as much as it does a philosophical standpoint. So we'll come back at a later date and explain that in more detail. But essentially, he wants to hire a consultant for miscellaneous plan reviews. Dollar for dollar, it equals the same thing. It's just basically having two different engineers doing two different sets of work. So we can come back and explain that in more detail unless y'all want to ask now. But basically, that's why he's proposing that other engineering is to have a consultant just for plan set reviews. The miscellaneous consultant line item is for anything that pops up that we have over the year. We've come to you all for several different change orders over this past year for mostly trail-related topics, staking, surveying, wetland studies, that kind of stuff, so that we've just kind of thrown that $10,000 in there to kind of give us the authority to get some of that stuff done without having to come back for every single little $2,000 expense here, $1,500 expense there. And then $50,000 is slated here for a planning tool. I think we've finally decided that we're going to do a comprehensive plan. We had initially proposed a Marvin Heritage District master plan, but that's kind of converted into this comprehensive plan where we're going to add some components of the Heritage District into that comprehensive. So that's what that $50,000 is for. We had originally appropriated $35,000 in this year's budget. We will not be spending any of that unless we proceed on to the comprehensive plan before the end of the fiscal year, and we can use some of that funding.
And will that include the PRG master plan update as well, or is that
It will
separate?
not. It
Okay.
will not, no.
Is that somewhere else, or?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Urban Forester is roughly the same, and then you have your membership expenses for planning staff and training and travel as well. And then everything else in operating is pretty much stable as it is this year. Any questions at all on any of that? Did anyone want to hear from Hunter on his philosophy of the consultant engineer versus you guys? Okay.
Quick synopsis.
In short, from plan review standpoint, AMT currently only reviews from basically stormwater, road, and engineering stuff regarding the site development. This would be something as a second set of eyes from a zoning compliance, like they don't review it in compliance with the MDO, as in the zoning regulations, if that makes sense. They were looking at it from requirements from stormwater, minimum road standards, and curb gutter, all that kind of jazz. So this would be for an additional set of eyes to do plan review specifically on zoning compliance as well. We already do that in-house, but based off the number of plans and stuff that we get with certain current development projects and, potential if rezonings are approved or future rezonings, it's from a time standpoint and a second set of eyes.
Okay.
Okay, moving on to public safety. Nothing's really changed in here. We did bump the increase up slightly based on what percentage increase we may see from Union County. Every year we see an increase. We don't know what that increase is yet, but we just threw some numbers in here just to show that we had an increase. I think we put 5% in for this year. We've never, I don't know if we've ever seen 5%. I think we more or less see between 3 and 4, but we did want to be conservative. Is that the right number we did stick with, Jill? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I do see that the off-duty for traffic control, that we see a decrease in that, and I thought we discussed, it has been a pretty effective thing, but
We originally, at a staff level, we originally cut it to try to balance the budget. We did add some back, but we're trying to work with what we've got, so we didn't add the entire thing back. So you see a small increase there, but it's not going to cover what we've been doing, so just FYI.
thank you.
John, I can actually elaborate on that as well. The reason it was so much, it was higher at 13,000 for this year is because when Davey was instructed to do a study, we were having, we tried to have 5 to 7 days a week to have the officers taking shifts, all various different timeframes to kind of collect data and see what our issues were. Now that we've done that and we've collected that data, it sounds like you guys all decided and Davey sort of agreed that just having the additional police presence maybe outside of our normal operating with our 2 deputies was good to just kind of keep the traffic maybe better, keep people from speeding and stuff. So Davey proposed that we continue, but just having an officer, we don't need it 5 to 7 days a week, but we figured maybe once or twice a week, having an officer take a 3-hour shift. So that's why it's so much less, because it's no longer a data gathering study that required a lot of hours of police presence. It's now more just maintenance. So it's about cut in half.
That makes sense, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, moving over to transportation. Obviously, we have our CRTPO dues, the streetlights for the roundabouts. we don't have any projected payments for the roundabout, for the Bonds Grove roundabout in next year, so nothing's budgeted there. Road projects, village match, I'm not remembering what that $11,000 was for. Jill, I don't have the notes
It's a
here.
critical intersection match that we still have an outstanding balance for that we think will come due this year
And then
from an
we-
interlocal.
And then we have the transfer to capital project roundabout. That is the money that we had previously discussed when we had last year's budget adoption. That dollar amount, that 167, was the equivalent of 1 cent tax increase last year. You all had, the way that the ordinance was written last year was you wanted to revisit this tax, this specific tax every year as a part of this process. We just went ahead and took that analysis as we're gonna equate the same amount of dollars that was to the dollar equivalent with the current year that we're in now. And that's the exact number that we pushed over to transfer into that kind of savings account for that roundabout. Now, if you take, if you guys really want to assess it based on the 1 cent tax rate, that number is gonna dramatically decrease, which will ultimately end up meaning we need more money at a later date for that roundabout.
Actually, it should dramatically increase because if we're lowering our tax rate, like let's say they decide to lower the tax rate, then now we only have 5 pennies versus 8 that we have this year. So the value of a penny will go up, and you would see if they still decided to allocate 1 full penny, that means 1/5. If we take, let's say we did a 5 cent, just to keep it simple math, if it's a 5 cent tax rate, then one penny is 1/5 of all of your ad valorem would go to that. It would be much higher. So we're just keeping it stable, keeping the equivalent amount that we budgeted last year, because I think when we set that 1 cent rate, we knew how much we needed to make in future years down the line to get the construction phase completed. I think it's adequate. I don't recommend increasing for this current year.
Okay, sorry. Thanks, Jill.
Yeah.
Are you guys good with that analogy?
Yep.
Okay, or interpretation, I should say. Engineering, maintenance, all of that's pretty much remained stable. We have, again, allocated a certain portion of Public Works salaries to PAL bill purposes. We have some new equipment costs there. Jill, when this printed, it didn't show me the notes here, so I can't really go into detail about what the specific things are. If you can just let us know what that $95,000 is.
Yeah, let me pull up the tracker real quick and take a look at that while you keep going.
And then drainage for stormwater, sidewalks, traffic control, all of that's pretty much stable, remaining stable from previous years. The maintenance resurfacing, that's part of the PCS survey that you guys did. The 150 was pretty much the stable number that we were either going to put in fog seal or taking over new roads. So we've kind of earmarked that. This year, we're doing taking over new roads and fog sealing of those new roads. So next year, we will go back and do the roads that we currently have. We'll fog seal those. And I don't remember exactly which ones they were, but they're on our website. But that 150 would be dedicated to currently owned Marvin roads today. We have put in some funding here for greenways maintenance repairs. This is anything that happens throughout the year where he needs to put down more gravel. Maybe there's, something that needs to be put in that his crew will do, so we put in some funding for that.
That's a big jump. That's a big decrease.
Jill, what is that 168 that's in the greenways right now?
Isn't that because we already approved the resurfacing of a certain portion of it?
I think that is the loop, the Marvin Loop, if I can remember correctly. I think the majority of that is in that account, which was over $100,000. Do you remember how much it was off the top of your head?
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
pretty.
we did a budget amendment to move some money into that account for this fiscal year to do the repairs on the loop. The 15.5 that we're proposing for next year, we're proposing to save that amount each year for the next few years so that when we're done with current trails, we've got about 45 to 50,000 or so saved up for the next phase of whatever trails we want to endeavor on.
But this is not for construction though. This is just for maintenance repairs.
Oh, yes, thank you. You're right. Sorry. Thank you.
So maintenance repairs, and based on what Jill just said, it could be funds that we may not use. I don't want to say slush fund for trails, but is it, I mean, that's a pretty significant decrease, and I understand why, but still, it's a pretty dramatic.
I'm wondering if it's enough, the 15, is that what you're saying, the 15.5?
Well, if, again, conceptually, what they're saying is we may not use this, but it's budgeted in there, and if we don't, we can just kind of roll it over for the next time we have a $168,000
Bogey.
So
yeah.
it doesn't really work that way because this is not a capital.
Right.
If it's not used, it would roll back into fund balance at the end of the year. So like if, let's just say we didn't use that 168,000, we know we are, but let's just say we didn't. It's not going to roll back into a Greenway account. It's going to roll back into fund balance. Yeah, yeah.
It's actually going to roll back into, it would.
The fund balance reserve
could
for
cost-
roads.
Yeah, reserve for roads.
But it's there for maintenance. If things pop up along the year, there's money in there for maintenance.
Okay, well, when I see that big of a drop,
Yeah, majority of it was the massive repair for Marvin.
you understand that we're trying to do everything that we can to keep the taxes as low as possible.
Yeah,
But it's the squeeze the balloon theory. If you're going to do something where we're letting something just fall off, and then we've got another $170,000, I'm not comfortable with that. But if, I'm trusting that what you're saying, I get it, it can roll back over into fund balance. But again, and again, I can appreciate, I don't want to pay taxes, nobody wants to have an increase in taxes. But we also can't let the village deteriorate just because we want to feel good about what our tax rate is. And when I look at all the other ones throughout the county, listen, they're all getting hit with the same thing. This is not a Marvin issue, this is a county issue. The reval didn't hit just Marvin. The county didn't come to Marvin and go, hey, Marvin, we're going to stick it to you. They hit every municipality, and so we're all tightening our belts here. But when I see such a drop like that, I have a question on it. And what I don't want to do, for the sake of saving a few hundred, or maybe $100 a person, to let things deteriorate, because what we don't want to do, I don't want to do, is kick the can down the road for some other council to go, what were they thinking back then? Oh, I know what they were thinking. They were thinking we were going to save money and be the hero.
So Councilman, I think I can elaborate on this a little bit. For the last few years, we've really only been budgeting between $2,000 and $5,000 annually for greenway maintenance. And that was, if we needed to put down a little bit more natural surface or gravel or something got washed away, or any particular trail needed some TLC. But as we are finishing more trails, and as we've got more public works crewmen who are able to get out and kind of survey those trails, we realized that we needed to increase the budget. The 168 that you're seeing for this year really is an anomaly. It's not an accurate depiction of what we normally budget for that. We do normally budget between 2 and 5. Just this particular year, because we decided we were going to fix a lot of the loop, it is very inflated. But that being said, we are almost tripling next year from 5,000 at the highest end of what we've had budgeted before to now over 15,000, to reflect that we do have increased costs and we do have more trails to maintain. So we're definitely increasing that line item. It just looks like it's a drastic decrease because it's an anomaly year for us.
Okay, understand. Thank you.
I
Yes,
guess
sir.
the only thing I would say is, like, once you put a shovel to it, we got to start
yeah.
putting a budget to it, and that shovel's getting wider and wider, where we've got so many projects, we really need to to Jamie's point, maybe revisit that so we don't have that anomaly where we're scrambling to figure out how we're going to be able to address that. Or if there is, I don't know, Davey, if you know something down the road that we don't, that may be around the corner, but, you know, these things can.
So Jill,
happen, so.
what was that 95,000 for the new equipment?
Christina, I can't get, I can't connect through the VPN from the School of Government, so I was actually gonna see if maybe Davey could speak to it or remembers what that was,
For the
for
equipment,
some, for some new equipment that would be used under transportation. I know it's on the
95,000.
Powell bill, it's on the Powell bill tracker, Christina, but I just can't get that open from where I am.
So it was equipment, were we looking for a truck?
It's not a
or-
bucket
I know we
truck.
talked about different.
Yeah, but they pulled that out. We talked
Right.
about a bucket truck, they pulled that out of the budget, so I don't know what it is.
Can you go get the
Are we looking at another pickup truck?
budget?
We've got everything.
Whatever you submitted
We've
for
got all
that.
the trucks and.
Okay, we'll come back to that. It's not the bucket truck, because that's somewhere else. I know we had talked about some snow removal devices, but I don't remember if that was it. So moving over, unless y'all have any questions on transportation, we'll come back to that. Moving over to Parks and Rec. Again, salaries and related expenses, training, memberships, all that's pretty much stable. We did cut the Marsh budget slightly. We cut it by $1,000, and that was based on the premise that they've started collecting for the community gardens. So we are projecting to reduce that to basically the equivalent of what they would receive from those community gardens. We also moved some of the expenses that we had previously seen for facilities of the park over to Public Works, since they're managing that a little bit more now. And then all of your events and related things in events are pretty much the same as they are this year. Again, Marvin Day was one of the biggest expenses that we had at around $30,000. We have not budgeted any revenue for that based on the recommendation that we had in the current year. We are still seeking sponsors, but we're not trying to budget the expenditures and the revenues reflectively. So total community events is around $62,000. We do have some event signage and banners that you all had decided you wanted to do more of this past year. We do have $50,000 in park projects from the CIP, and that is for the Greenways Master Plan update. He had originally requested $75,000, 25 of that being for the athletic fields assessment that we had talked about at the retreat. That was, having a consultant come in and see from a feasibility standpoint, how much, identifying certain properties, what we could do from an athletic field development process. We did cut that out. And then we have put in another $15,000 for a transfer to Greenways. This would be for construction purposes. Obviously, $15,000 is not going to get us anywhere, but we don't have any dedicated funding mechanisms for Greenways and Trails as it stands today. So we put something in there just to have a place marker, but knowing that that's not going to get too far, just so y'all know. Any other comments on that, Jill?
No.
Any questions? Okay. Moving over to solid waste. Nothing to really talk about here. We're not projecting any rate increases for the consumer. It's pretty much the revenue coming in as the expenditure going out.
Have we had the conversation with Active around all of this? Or
Yes. So
they're matched up with it, we're all good with contract and?
yes, you do have a contract amendment on your consent agenda tonight for Active. They did agree to your bulk event that is scheduled for sometime in April. I'll let Davey comment on that. I think it's April 13th, but I could be wrong. Staff is prepared to send an announcement out, and they are extending the contract for 1 year as you all requested. I've already got them to review that documentation. They're good with it. It's on your consent. As soon as y'all approve it tonight, we'll sign it and get it executed over.
I know that when we went through this process with Weddington, and again, I'm just curious more than anything, When I look at, fees, I see solid waste we're at 250 and they're 264. Do you know the difference? And I know it's not much, but do you know why there's a difference?
I do not know. They may have, so if you remember, some of y'all,
They may have added it.
they may have added some different things. And they had different rates, if I'm not mistaken, so I don't know.
Yep.
Any other questions on solid waste? We'll move over to Public Works. Nothing's changed here. We're not projecting any increase in staff. We're not actually projecting any increase in staff across the board, but at Public Works, they are remaining stable. Same as training, membership, and safety. Operating expenses for Public Works is where it gets pretty costly. I mean, you've got landscaping, mulch, fertilizer, equipment, staining, painting, uniforms, emergency repairs. You've got a slew of things that equate to about $130,000. All of that is pretty much stable for the most part. You have a slight decrease in tree pruning for the park. That's because we're doing some of it this year. You have an increase in facility maintenance for Village Hall. As we're aging here at Village Hall, we want to start putting some money into the operating budget to fix some repairs as they come up. We had a couple of generator hiccups this past year. It's been pretty costly. I say costly, it's been a couple $1,000s that we've had to repair. Battery went dead. There's a couple of other things that have happened. Also, the AV equipment, whenever we have some hiccups with that, we've got to call for service calls on that every single time. So there's just some slight increases across the board. They have a $11,000 request for a new dump trailer / hauler. Currently, as it stands, they, collect stuff, collect trees, and they try to take them in our trucks, and it's just not very efficient. We do have a trailer, but they're wanting like a dump style trailer to make things more efficient.
Is that going to be down at the maintenance?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Christine, just looking at holidays, decor materials, the increase, is that like a one term? We're not going to see that again. It's just what is that really? I mean, that's a considerable.
Yeah, so he had originally had pole banners in here, and that was what y'all discussed at the retreat based on the pole banners that you saw in Locust. We did cut that. The holiday decor is just having some things here at Village Hall. Like you see some municipalities have big Christmas presents that are wrapped up, like big light fixtures. Just some kind of devices that we would have here at the main corridor for holiday decor. So yes, it would be a one-time expense unless y'all wanted to expand that to over the years. In the CIP, he had requested $90,000 for a bucket truck and then another $20,000 for that facility assessment that we talked about at the retreat. And that was really to have someone come in and look at our growth in terms of staffing, how much we're going to grow, how can we expand Village Hall, or how can we develop a Public Works facility somewhere else. We have no idea what that cost would be. I just threw a number at it. 35 or 20,000 is kind of what we came up with. We have subsequently cut that and said we try to figure it out ourselves when the time comes. It is definitely a need at some point in time, but we figured we could, break down another year without having that done. The $90,000 was cut, but because the reason it was cut was because we did cut the pole banners out. And the biggest portion of what Davey said he would need it for next year was for putting up the pole banners. He can probably buy one more year. We do eventually need a bucket truck for cutting down some, trees when things are needed as we grow in terms of road maintenance, but we felt like we could suffice for one more year. You'll see a reflective $50,000 increase at the bottom to transfer for future capital, and that was essentially a way for us to earmark $50,000 of that bucket truck in this year, so we're planning.
But did we not talk about going to a pull behind where it's not a full truck? Because that gets very expensive, and that's probably even in the used one. But I know they make the pull behind ones, you can rent them.
We did, and Davey, I know he stepped out looking for that $95,000, Staff did not feel like that's the best option for us, and I'll let him explain it, but essentially, he felt like it was a little bit of a liability risk to have the guys pull over on areas that were already talking about shoulder issues and having to pull over a large truck with a trailer, but I'll let him explain that in just a second. Staff is not recommending that option, so that's why we stayed with the original option. Does anybody have any questions aside from what you see here? Okay. That being said,
Christina,
uh-huh.
may I circle back to the transportation budget for a
Yes.
second? Yeah. Okay, so it does appear that the 95,000 for equipment, that at one point Davey and I had discussed on the tracker using Powell bill funds to pay for the bucket truck. So even though we took it out of the CIP and the Public Works budget, I had added it into the transportation budget. It's still a wash because I have taken it out and I have cut 90,000 off of what I was planning to transfer in out of Powell bill reserve to cover the transportation budget. So it's having net zero effect on the bottom line, but I've now taken the 90,000 out, put it back down to 5,000 and cut 90,000 off of what we were transferring in from Powell bill reserve to make it balance.
Tyler,
But it was duplicated.
Can you grab Debbie so you can explain this bucket truck? Okay, so basically what she's saying is that whenever we balance the budget for transportation, she usually takes a fund balance appropriation to supplement what's received, in addition to what's received in Powell bill revenues. So so she's basically taken the expenditure out and the respective revenue, so it's a zero. She hadn't put that revenue back in anyways after she cut it, so it doesn't really matter. So the 95,000 is gone, but it doesn't affect the bottom line.
Correct.
And then he's gonna go grab Davey to explain the bucket truck. Davey, if you don't mind just explaining the bucket truck and while we're recommending a bucket truck instead of the pull behind. It's fine, we figured it out. Thanks, I appreciate you.
Well, and just to clarify, that's not something that we're saying is budgeted now anyway.
The bucket truck?
Yeah.
Essentially it is, because we have a $50,000, if you look in the Public Works, very bottom where it says capital outlay totals, I'm putting $50,000 in a transfer. So if you remember a couple years ago, we started doing this capital reserve, and we were putting, I don't know, $2,000 or $3,000 aside for, it was mostly set up for lawnmower and related equipment replacement. But now that we're getting into kind of bigger, more shiny things, that $50,000 is essentially a way for us to save $50,000 this year to prepare to buy it next year. And the reason I did that is
Okay,
because
so it's in the budget for this year, but for next year.
there's a $50,000 savings, I guess I should, so,
Okay, I guess I just got confused because you said when the cut pole banners were kind of decided they're not going to do it.
Yes.
Then it was decided that the bucket truck could be next year.
it can wait. It can wait until next year.
Half of the money towards it
Gotcha.
this year, and then the other half next year.
But let me just real quick explain the reason I did it that way is because this is the first year that we have not been able to fully fund 100% of the capital improvement plan. There may have been some minor things here and there, and I say that based on general, not greenways. We've never been able to fully fund greenways capital. But the capital improvement plan that we've had over the last several years, we've been able to pretty much fund 100% of that. This is the first year we've really had to cut a lot of stuff, so we just don't have the money to put in for it. We do not have a true effective funding mechanism to pay for equipment. I mean, we set aside, again, I don't know exactly how much it is, a couple $1,000s each year to pay for lawnmower replacements, but lawnmowers are upwards of $10,000, $15,000, so it would take 5 years at the rate we were going to pay for one lawnmower, which should, in a normal situation, should be fine. But as we're growing in terms of our fleet, we now have 3 vehicles. We are not setting any money aside to replace those vehicles. So what we've been doing every year is relying on fund balance appropriations. When you're talking about a piece of equipment that's $100,000 and that's a used piece of equipment, that's going to be a big chunk to bite off from a fund balance appropriation. It's not something that we can afford currently in our operating budget without cutting some of these planning devices, cutting staff, cutting some of that stuff, which is, obviously not something we really venture to do. So if we're not prepared to start a consistent funding mechanism to start paying for some of these things, we're, like Jamie said, shooting ourselves in the foot. So that's why I put the $50,000 in there, because we have to start thinking about how we're gonna fund some of these things. And if we're not talking about that now, it's only gonna hurt us next year when we need the bucket truck and we're trying to come up with $100,000. Another solution that I have proposed at a staff level, and I don't think you guys are gonna like this based on conversations we've had in the past, but it is an option that I wanna throw out there, and that's, we could start looking at installment finance purchasing. I mean, we're going to be financing. We would finance for 5 years. That's what you would, I think it's 59 months you can finance without getting LGC approval. And we would basically take whatever that dollar amount is to make a consistent funding mechanism year after year to basically have a replacement. So we could look at funding the installment finance purchase for the bucket truck and put aside less money than this, and that would be a way that we are forcing ourselves to come up with that capital improvement plan based on that dollar amount that we set aside. So that's an option. I just know that we're gonna be paying more in interest than what we're gaining in interest, so that's,
That's what I was going to ask,
Yeah.
is do we get special financing rates because we're a municipality for things like that? And if so, what are those rates in comparison to what we're earning?
yeah, so I looked at that I looked at that when I initially thought about this about a month ago, and the rates at the time were just slightly marginally over what we're making in terms of our investment. So it's not gonna be a wash. It's gonna be a slight increase, but it is a way for us to force a kind of funding mechanism, so to say. So it's an option. I'm not saying we have to make that decision today, but that $50,000 is there to force us to start having the hard conversations that we've got to start thinking about. Because if we don't do it now, it's just going to be a compounded problem next year, and then the next year. Does that make sense? Sorry, I'll clean this up in a minute.
Okay, so real quick, for the bucket truck, that's what I had originally budgeted for, but there were some ideas about some other options as far as like tow-behind units, self-propelled units, and so I did some research on all of these. And so for the bucket truck, I had listed some pros and cons for each of these options. For a bucket truck, it's the mobility. You can kind of move it around. It's one unit rather than pulling a pull-behind trailer with it. It's a safer operation in inclement weather when you're using a one-unit operation. It's easier to navigate along busy roadways, and they are designed to operate from uneven surfaces. So you see a lot of the power companies, a lot of the telecommunication companies, they'll operate out of bucket trucks, different styles, different sizes. It's to get in those right-of-ways, whether you're straddling a ditch line or anything like that. The cons that I had heard in the past, it is annual taxes you do have to pay on a vehicle type of operation. I looked into the tow-behind units. They are trailer-mounted. You can get them with single energy, battery, gas, whichever you prefer, or you can get them with dual energy that operates both. Those cost between $29,000, $33,000. So that's the cost that you're looking at there. But it's a tow-behind unit. They work really well if you're in a park setting, if you're in a village hall working around the building setting. One of the cons for those are in inclement weather. If we've got ice, snow on the roadways, you're pulling a trailer across that. If you pull into a road and you have a tree down, you may have to try to back that trailer on those icy conditions out of that neighborhood and then back it back down the road to be able to get to these trees. That makes it a challenge operating that style in those conditions. Doesn't happen as often as it used to, but if we're responsible for removing trees, you never know what type of situation you're going to run into out there on those roads.
So in this past winter, especially starting with Helene, what would have you felt safer being in?
Definitely a bucket truck. It's one, like I said, it's one unit. It's, you can just navigate the roads better. And I could go either way, honestly, on most applications, except when you're working in the right of way. If you're figuring, I tried to take the radar unit out just a few weeks back, and trying to find a level spot in the right-of-way shoulders was a challenge. And so that's what we would always be working with the pull-behind trailer, that type of option. You know, with the bucket truck, you can get in there and you can, ditches, you can go through them, around them, or sit on top of them. It's a little bit easier to maneuver. Now, there's a third option. It's a self-propelled 4x4 units, similar to the style that you have on a trailer. You would have to trailer these as you take them around to locations, but you pull it off the trailer and then go operate. The cons you run in with it's around $59,000, but the issues you run into is it does have to be towed, and then their maximum speed is less than 4 miles an hour. So you're trying to cross some of these roadways if you have to park in this parking lot to try to get to, if we do move forward with banners down the road, trying to get across the road to work on some of these poles, it would be a challenge at that speeds. And then they come this lack of headlamps, if you will. So if you are in an inclement weather situation, you have to drive them down the road to get to a tree.
So we only have about 30 seconds left. We can continue this conversation into the next meeting, or we can talk about it again at the budget work session. But so in short, I just wanted to remind you that the revenue neutral rate is what we have projected in the budget. It's likely going to change between now and when we actually get numbers back from the county. So when we have our next budget meeting, which is the 8th of April, if I'm not mistaken, we'll have a lot better numbers that should be pretty solid by that point, because Union County will have come back with us with actual numbers.
I know that the county showed us this, and, you know, the public was viewed, and then they came obviously to the meeting. Just a dumb question on my part. What was the justification for this appraisal? I probably missed that, but what was the justification
I mean,
for this
why it was
appraisal?
done?
Yeah.
Because it's required by statute.
No, I mean the amount. I mean, in other words, the large amount. Was it
The
because?
increase?
Yes.
I
Did
can't
they
answer.
ever say? I'm just
I
wondering.
can answer that. So
Okay.
that's also required by state statute. They are required to value
Comps.
all of the properties at 100% of market value. So a lot of people are under the misconception that my tax or appraised value should always be less than what it could sell for. And that is true in between appraisals, because every single year, in theory, our properties are going up. But because we only reappraise every 4 to 8 years, depending on the county, we do enjoy quite a long period of time where our appraised value is below market. But state statute not only requires them to do it minimum every 8 years, but when they do it, they are required to put homes right up to 100% of market value, just like your cars and boats and your personal property as well. That's also state statute.
So, Councilman Markleese, I actually gave you a copy of their presentation, so you might, so if you look through that, there might be a lot of that information in that.
We're required to do it, I believe, every 8 years, but I think it's been only 4 years since they.
There's certain thresholds where if sales reach a certain number, a percentage, they have to do it every 4 years. So I don't know what that exact terminology is, but it sounded like we were at whatever threshold that was, that the county had to do it within the 4
Out
years.
of all the municipalities, we were also probably the biggest jump, like in 60-some%.
The presentation's in front of, like, you have a copy of it, and I know
That's in
they
the
had.
presentation. And actually, Wingate was at 71%, so they were the
They've been
highest.
undervalued for a while.
So,
There's several in the presentation, there's all the percentage increases. I don't know all of them.
Okay,
Sorry, I didn't mean to go over, but that's where we're at.
all right. Any questions from council? All right, give me 1 second here while I get back to my, all right, so we're gonna move in shortly, but I'm gonna take a quick break before we start our regular meeting. But I'll need a motion to adjourn this meeting.
so moved.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. All right, so I'm just going to need a few minutes, and then I will be back out to start the 6 o'clock meeting. All right.
Christina,
Yes, ma'am.
I'm getting kicked out of the School of Government, so I'm going to drive 10 minutes down the road to my hotel, and I will join again via Zoom when I'm in my room.
Okay, all right, thanks. Be safe.
Bye.
We're gonna table this. We're gonna table this.
Thank you.
Wait for Bob. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to open up the Village Council regular meeting, March 11, 2025. Show the time at 6:06. We do PM. We do have a quorum here, and we have, I think, a few people dialing in. So that said, we need a motion to consider allowing the remote participation for this meeting.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You have Mayor Pro Tem Vandenberg and Councilman Dethridge online. Jill is online as well.
Okay. Sorry. Motion passes. Was it? Did we said aye, right? I thought I heard him. Okay. Moving on, adoption of the agenda. Do we have any changes from anyone? Hearing none, we'll need a motion to adopt the agenda as presented. So moved. All is in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next up Adoption of the previous minutes. Anybody have any questions, changes, or notations they want to make? Hearing none, I'll need a motion to adopt the previous minutes.
So moved.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next up, we have Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next up, we have public comment period. Have anyone sign up? A reminder, when you come up to the front, we'll turn that microphone on if you are coming up. State your name, address, and we give you 3 minutes. There's no dialogue, just comment period. Do you have
Alright,
anyone?
Yes. Up first is Angel Martin, 8914 Laurelwood Lane.
You turn that on. Thank you, Angel.
Hi, y'all. I caught the tail end of your work session, and I heard Christina saying that you guys are considering revenue neutral, and I am grateful for that, and I hope you will continue down that path. I don't know how bad y'all were affected, but our property tax increase was 111%. It was ugly. So anything y'all can do to help alleviate that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. So you got yours already, I take it.
All right, next up is Vamsi Vimuri, 6004 T Olive.
Hey, good evening. My name is Vamsi Vemuri. I live in 6004 T Olive Road, Preservate Marvin. Again, I'm here to express my concerns with the commercialization that is happening in this area, especially with the commercial zoning that is proposed in front of our neighborhood. I would request the council to consider the traffic impacts, the impact on the lifestyle for the neighborhood, safety. I mean, currently we are in a very pure residential zone, which we considered it is going to be like that for a long time. But all of a sudden, things are being imposed on us, to be honest with you. I know we haven't paid attention to what's happening in the village hall when the ordinances are being passed or new zoning public hearings are happening. We miss those opportunities. But when we came to know that we are attending this as much as possible, we're trying our best to be here to voice our concerns. So I sincerely request the council to give priority to the citizens or the residents in the Preservate Marvin, because especially with the new commercial that is being planned in front of our neighborhood, how is it going to impact us? Because there are few houses that are next to it, and by changing any setbacks or anything, those are all going to impact those neighbors. I mean, I'm not even talking about myself. I know few of my fellow community members, everyone is concerned with what is coming up there, and we are very concerned what will end up there. By having that there, we are all very much concerned, like what stores will be coming there. Okay, today they say this, after 5 years, there will be another ordinance, something new comes up. So please take into consideration of Preservate Marvin residents, majority of the residents, I would say, and do the needful. Please think about commercializing this area in as a first, because I believe this commercialization idea was based on the, I believe the survey that was done in 2019. I think one thing I request you is please consider one more survey with all the residents. Maybe if the thing stands still with requesting for commercialization still is the voice of the people, please, I mean, definitely I think that should how it be. But the survey that is done in 2019 should not be the case. Thank you.
All right, next up is Sankar Ramesh, 4062 Flowering Peach.
Hi, I'm Shankar Ramesh. I'm in 4062 Flowering Peach. I have the same concerns as Vamsi. The lot which is the closest to Preservate Marvin, there is a proposal to rezone it from residential to commercial, and we are residents of preserve. Majority of the residents are strongly opposed to that for several reasons. One of them is the parking situation, which I know we have only a few parking spots in the proposed plan, and there was a proposal to have some parking spots in the Preserve of Marvin, and we are concerned about that. The second is crime with the parking. Even if we have some commercialization in that, some of the property abutting that particular new commercialization of that site, we will see some crime from the parking lot at night and everything else. And then we are not, those are the two key considerations. And with schools such close distance to the commercial property being developed, we want to raise our strongest objections to making that into a commercial zone. That's the reason for my, thank you.
All right, next up is Naveed Jalali.
I'm the neighbor right behind this new commercial project you have. So we're immediately affected by that, as everyone else has brought up, echoing every other concern I have. But the other thing is the flooding. It's already damaging my property. It's damaging the preserved area on the other side of my building. I have a lot of pictures and videos I can show you if you want. I actually asked Union County about this last week and haven't heard any concrete answer. But I wanted to know what really research have you done? I mean, you have not even started to see the impact of the traffic or anything else this other ZAPSA project is going to bring for the neighborhood, and you're talking about another one without, I don't know what kind of research you did. Any independent company or institution has looked into that. A variety of things that are going to impact this area. And why not even thinking about these things elsewhere? Why just everything around here? And then the nature, the wildlife that is going to be impacted, there's a huge erosion there. The fixing that they did with Village of Marvin assistance, it's already, again, dipping down. That whole hill that they made there is, again, with the last few rains, it's already going down. It's next to my yard, damaging my property, risk of erosion more, and landslide. I'm terribly scared about this project, which is probably not studied very well as far as environmental impacts. Thank you.
All right, next up is Vasu Bathima.
Hi, my name is Vasu Bathina. I live in 2000 Flowering Beach Road, here at Preserve at Marvin. Actually, my concerns are more in general of all the commercialization. Basically, I want to address in three aspects. The first one is the stormwater, right? So basically, we live downstream to that creek. We already see increased volume of water from this because we are converting permeable surfaces to non-permeable. If we lay out, concrete and all those, the water is gonna. It's very common. It's a common sense, right? The water is gonna flow into the creek, and we'll see a lot of erosion downstream, right? And also, I want to also raise my concerns with the connectivity of all the trails, right? Trails, Marvin trails to the multiple points from Innis Brook and here at this thing. And then also with respect to the parking. Recently, I saw two parking signs, not signs in the maps itself, see two pieces within the Preserve at Marvin. With all these three things, what I want to say is unless we have a very clear studies done through all this, I would request the council to slow down this rezoning process for all the commercial. Right, so that's all.
All right, next up is Naveem Sunkireddy.
Hi, everyone. I'm Naveen. I'm also a resident of Preserve at Marvin. I share the same concerns as my neighbors have mentioned earlier. So I have a formal letter detailing all my concerns. Who can I submit it to, please? Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
All right, next up is Priya Bala, 3000 Flowering Peach.
Hi, I'm Priya. resident of 3000 Flowering Peach Road. I'm also a mom of a 10-year-old kid who attends school in Marvin Elementary. So I also oppose the commercialization property, which is coming next to Pam, and which is very close to the school. So in the last 1 year, there have been incidents of burglary and schools put on soft lockdowns. Commercializing a property which is very next to the school, are we going to expose this area to more unwanted people and to more people who are not needed for this one? And are we going to compromise the safety and more lockdowns are we going to see? So I'm not going to talk just from a PAM's perspective that I'm objecting this commercialization. I'm also talking on behalf of the parents of Marvin Elementary School, which are small kids attending. So is there going to be any security concerns? And because if there is any unwanted things happening around, then the first step would be putting the school on a soft lockdown or a lockdown scenario. So this is kind of a concern from all of the parents. I'm representing the parents of Marvin Elementary School and requesting the committee to reconsider this decision of commercializing or bringing any commercial properties very close to those schools. Thank you.
All right, next up is Ryan Carter, 4028 Flowering Peach.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I'd like to echo comments of my neighbors. I appreciate the opportunity. I'd like to address the fact that I think it was mentioned on the last meeting that we had here that the plans have changed for the property adjacent to the Preserve at Marvin entrance a number of times. I think it was 4 to 5 was referenced on the last call. And at that point in time, I think it was also discussed that there was no formal makeup for the property. What percentages was office versus retail versus dining? Each one of those types of commercial properties requires different parking allotments and so forth. So for them to make a determination at that point in time that what was there was adequate doesn't make sense to me. I think that, like I said, it was the 4th or 5th rendition of those plans. So I do appreciate something has to go there. But when that something is determined, I think then at that point we can move forward with discussions around is what is in place adequate to provide for that property at that point in time. Because as of my understanding right now, nothing has been addressed. The makeup of the property has not been finalized, so we don't know what is in place will suffice. Is it going to back up the parking too much if it's all dining? So if we can get more details on that information, that'd be beneficial. And we're all well aware of the parking scenarios of having to line up half a mile down the road during rush hour traffic. That's just going to exacerbate the current problem. And other neighbors had commented about the current drainage issues. So I don't recall, and don't quote me, I don't recall seeing any sort of drainage remediation in the last plan. So if we can get something formalized, like I think it was even mentioned in the last call, 35,000 square feet, 92 parking spots is not sufficient. And that's even without knowing the full makeup of what the property will take. So if we can get some more details around that, I think we would be in a better position to evaluate everything in its entirety. So I do appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
All right, next up is David Fick, 2029 Groves Edge Lane. Just signing in? Okay. Then last up is Robert Ravicki, 8016 Stonehaven. Just to sign in? Okay. Mr. Mayor, no one else has signed up to speak.
Okay, thank you for your comments. And moving on, we're going to go into
Mr. Mayor, is your microphone on?
Sorry.
Thank you.
You're usually here to do that for me, so thank you. Next up, we're going to go right into, we have no presentation, so we're going right into reports and updates. First, we'll start with manager's report.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We had a joint PRG meeting, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks ago, where we discussed trail hours and motorized vehicle prohibition on trails. We had a very in-depth conversation about that. I think you all have mutually decided that you did not want to pursue trail hours. So just wanted to make sure that was, I know some of you weren't at that meeting, so that was kind of the consensus of both PRG and the council at the time, is they did not want to move forward on creating trail hours. There was a lot of discussion about the ordinance that we have that prohibits motorized vehicles. We're still working on some language with the sheriff's department to be able to criminally enforce that activity. I will bring that back to you all at a later date. We had hoped to have that ordinance in place before this meeting, but Union County's attorneys are working on some language with our attorney, so we'll have that soon. Also, any questions on that before I move over to the next topic? Did I miss anything that anybody wanted to rehash from PRG? Okay. In the discussions of trail safety and some of the concerns that are brought forth from the community, and then kind of trying to balance out if we're proceeding with trail construction. I've presented this option to you all before. I just wanted to kind of formally show you. There's a couple of different things that we can implement to kind of assist in trail safety. That's these blue lights that you have in your agenda packet. I also passed one around so you can see an example. Didn't know if you guys were interested, but I just wanted to offer it as a solution to kind of balance out some of the concerns. We did get a quote. It's roughly around $15,000 per device. I think the quote that's in your packet is around $29,000 for 2 devices. That's with installation. There's 2 vendors in there. One's with installation, one's without installation. The one that's called Talkaphone does not include installation. So this is not something I have budgeted. I just wanted to bring it to your attention as an option if you guys were interested. But unless y'all have specific questions, I don't have a lot of research on it. I just wanted to present it as an option before we went down the research hole.
Just, considering that they'd be on trails, I see some of these look like they might be direct power versus others are solar,
Yes.
But a lot of our trails are necessarily in areas that don't have power and would be in the woods, so.
Yes, and that was something that I discussed with the vendor. He said they could put the solar panel either higher above the tree line or in a different spot where it would have sun, or we could figure out a solution for battery packs. I don't know all the options. I didn't spend a whole lot of time looking into it. I just wanted to see if you all were interested in it first, and then we can go back and spend more time researching those issues.
So the point of this is that it's activated if somebody is at 2 o'clock in the morning going down a trail. This light goes on, it appears, as I'm looking here, and it takes a picture?
They have different ones, but they can record if you chose that one. There's different options, but that is a possibility, yes.
So it's also an emergency call box, correct?
Yes, it would directly tie into 911 if something were to happen and someone felt like the button needed to be pressed. You see these a lot of times at campuses, like college campuses. And y'all may not even be interested. I just wanted to bring it to you to see if there was any interest, if y'all wanted us to go back and research it some more.
Any comments from council? I mean, I know we talked about the time frame and shutting down the trails at one point, but that really didn't go anywhere as far as time. I think it was just logic would tell you if it's 2, 3 in the morning or something, but people run at that time too. So, I mean, there's runners out there. So, I'm not opposed to these. I see them in schools. I just think logistically, to your point, John, if we don't have power to it, then we'd have to go above the tree line or have to run a line to get, because I don't think battery pack would necessarily work, but would have to run a line to an open area where it would get enough sun to be able to even work. So not sure how effective that would be or not.
It would seem that if you had to raise a solar panel up above the trees, the cost would be increased significantly for that particular application. They're not cheap, but I guess, I wouldn't be opposed to them. I think looking at more options and more information about them, specifically what it would cost to have a solar panel up that much higher, and then really kind of get an idea of how many of these that we would want, and how effective are they? Where would they go? To be effective, So I think some more questions, a little more research would be in order for this. Again, I'm not either way on it at this point because I don't have that, it's very, little bit of information, but I'm certainly not opposed to them.
And I guess if I were just to go and ask everyone who has a phone on them right now, I bet you everybody would raise their hand. So does that really make sense to put something like this on the trail when most people carry phones anyway?
Well, I mean, it depends on.
From a lighting
yeah.
standpoint, I understand,
It's
but
a-
from
well,
a
it's a camera as
safety,
well.
safety and stuff, so.
So before, we spent a whole lot of time researching it, because, we don't have a whole lot of time, if y'all aren't interested. We wanted to get kind of a temperature gauge first, and if there's a consensus to research it, we do not have money budgeted for these, so we would have to do a fund balance appropriation. Wanted to just bring it to your attention first. We can go back to the drawing board and do some research and bring back a more formal kind of presentation to you all, if there's interest amongst all of you.
I'd hold off on that. I'll bring it up at the next PRG meeting.
Okay.
And kind of have some conversations with them, so, because, typically where you see these go in are where you have a place that has issues, Typically, they're kind of targeted to specific areas, parking lots at a college where people may be coming out late, things like that. At this point, I don't know that we have any, quote, hot spots that we would immediately know, oh, we need one here, or we need one there.
And it
So-
reminds me of, in my neighborhood, in the beginning, it was the lighting that was there from Union Power was just there, was supposed to kind of light a pathway, wasn't necessarily. Over time, people were concerned and they wanted more lighting in there, so I think we went to the HOA and we added where those hot spots were and stuff, so I don't want to get ahead of the skis and saying, okay, yeah, we're gonna do this. I think we got to determine if we do have hot spots that would make sense to put a couple of these in
And then where you choose, because at $15,000 apiece, plus I'm assuming there's ongoing maintenance needs for them as well. You can't just really flood the zone, You'd have to really kind of know where you want to put it. So I'll bring it up as a topic of conversation with the PRG board and get some feedback from them. And, they go out and talk and speak to people in the community as well, so.
Okay.
I mean, I would like to do a little bit more research. I absolutely think bringing it back to PRG is a great idea. But, I'm seeing the concerns about safety and the Heritage District, and if this might quell some of those concerns, we could look to the developers to add these. It's an option, and then the village doesn't have to pay for it.
Well, and you also weigh it versus the costs of what does it take to add another officer, and things like that we're trying to prioritize from a safety standpoint, so.
Okay. Anything else, Christine?
That's all for now, sir.
All right. Next up, clerk and communication.
Okay, I don't normally give you all an update at the regular meeting, but we did get a communication request from Union County Public Schools. They are hosting a career fair in April. They're looking to fill a lot of positions, and they've asked us to share this information and advertise for them. Per your communication policy, I just need to get you all to either let me run with that, or if you don't want us to do that, we don't have to.
Will they trade us for access to Peach Jar?
Yeah, exactly, because if they want us to advertise for them, then, we've been trying to get advertising into the schools for our events and such, and we've been running against some resistance.
Both ways.
I'm not
Goes
prepared to
both
speak
ways.
on Peach Jar.
Well, but the communication goes both ways as far as I'm concerned. I think that, that might be something we should mention to them we'd be glad to advertise for them if they would in turn.
Yeah, and I'm fine with doing it anyway, but I think we do want to mention to them that, we're also trying to inform people at the schools. And, we know and understand that even within our schools, Marvin, Sandy Ridge, there may be Marvin residents there, non-Marvin residents, but we typically welcome them all. They're the same people we go to school with and things, so.
So to get a consensus from the board, are you guys okay with me advertising this for now? And I'll have a discussion with their communications person about the issues with Peach Jar, or?
I have no problem with it, but leave it up to council.
I'm fine with the advertising, but if you would follow up, that would be
Bob?
great.
I'm not interested.
Not interested? Jamie?
That's fine.
Kim Wayne?
Kim Wayne?
I'm fine with it, but I think John's idea is great. Like, let's get them to advertise for us if they want free advertisement, or we'll charge them however much they charge us to advertise on Peach Star.
Wayne?
But I think we can probably work something out with them.
Okay, well, hearing no other concerns, we'll move forward for now. I'll have that discussion with them. And yeah, I'll let you know what I hear back.
Thank you. Anything else? Anything else?
No, that's all I have.
All right. Next up, planners report.
Good evening, council. The only thing I have an update on is just a reminder that the county will hold the public meetings for the critical intersection for the designs for the Waxhaw Marvin and Stacy Howie intersection, as well as the Marvin Road and Joe Carr intersection. It's a virtual public meeting, and it's on March 27th from 6 to 8 for any members of council or any members of the public that do not have that information and would like to know the link. Just let me know, reach out to me. I'll be happy to provide that to you. Other than that, and it's on our website. Other than that, any questions?
Even as a virtual meeting, do we have to publish that there could be a quorum?
Just to be on the safe side, if you guys know that a lot of y'all are planning to attend these, just let me know and I can put something out. You want me to go ahead and just do that?
I will note that date and time is the same time as our WUMA meeting, which we have Brian Matthews speaking from the county. So anybody that's interested in hearing what Mr. Matthews has to say about the state of the county at that meeting may not be able to listen to that presentation. So I just want to make that everybody aware of
We'll
that.
issue a potential quorum notice for the virtual meetings. We won't issue one for WUMA unless all y'all plan to attend that.
And I also believe that after the meeting, there's still a public comment period. So there's also, if we don't have it on our website, there's a link to the story map that provides the information of what the critical intersection design, what the county has done, as well as the recommendation improvements for both of those intersections. There's a main recommendation and then an alternative. Basically, it's a roundabout at both, and then a signal interchange as the backup. So all that will be provided at that neighborhood meeting or at that public meeting, as well as opportunity for members of the public that can attend that to then provide comment after the meeting's completed. So, any other questions? Thank you.
Next up, we have roads report. Christina, is that you?
We don't have anything to report. We are still waiting to hear back from DOT about Newtown. Y'all had asked me about Newtown in conjunction with the Stacy Howie. We're also still waiting to hear back for the release of what I'd mentioned before, some of Marvin Creek, Innisbrook, Valhalla, Woodcliff. And we're hoping to have that done before July 1st. So I think we have, was it in March that we have, April, we have it slated to come back to you all for a resolution of abandonment. So we're still waiting.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Next up, deputies report.
I don't think Lieutenant May was prepared to give a report. I don't know if y'all have any questions that he can specifically answer, but the report's here. If they have questions, I can show it. We do have a new deputy. He's in training right now. I will introduce him at the next meeting.
Just one thing that I noticed in the report, does our mobile sign that we move around, does that get reported on too, or provide reports of the speeds? Because I know we placed that one over on Newtown.
It does
I
not.
noticed it does, okay.
No,
But
because
do we get
that's
that?
ours.
Do we get that information ourselves then?
I think Ed knows how to, I think Deputy Swan knows how to pull it, but it does not get converted into this.
It's much older. It's harder to pull information off.
Oh, okay. Well, if we can find if there is a way to pull information off on that, I think that'd be important to know.
I did notice an officer today on Newtown Road, but he was out of his car using the radar. Is that common?
Yes, sir, I'll step up and kind of tell you about what we're doing. So I have
Use
usually loud enough where I don't need a microphone, but I don't have that report in front of me for the deputies' report. They've been doing a great job out here in this area. We've worked in conjunction with the town of Weddington, and over the past month, we have come together with that group and picked mutual locations within these communities to increase traffic enforcement, specifically with a secondary goal for interdiction and weapons reduction in our community. Just last weekend, or about a week and a half ago, we had 30 law enforcement officers from various agencies across Union County come together, and we held a driver safety checkpoint at Providence Road just past, or on Providence Road just past Ray. And we were able to pull 3 illegal weapons out of cars, several drunk drivers, made 6 arrests during that night, and kept the roadways safer. Earlier today, we stopped around 20 cars just on Newtown Road for speed violations in excess of 20 miles per hour over the posted speed limit. So we, like I said, our folks are out there working. We're trying to be as proactive as we can be to keep out in the community and stay safe. I've also asked the dedicated Village of Marvin deputies to increase their patrols in our neighborhoods, specifically looking for any off-road vehicle activity, things like that. And if they spot that activity, they immediately address it and find a resolution that works for our office and the people involved. So, like I said, you've got the report in front of you, it's got the numbers. I won't take the time there, but I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Just out of curiosity, because we're trying to get our heads around this, you know, what's going to be allowed on trails, and, you know, we have, I know you have the ability to use a golf cart and stuff.
Yes, sir.
I see, especially in our neighborhood, I see kids clearly under the age of 16 driving down with a bunch of kids hanging on and stuff. What is your action? Do you have to see it or take a picture? I mean, what is it? Because we had a very serious incident probably 6-7 years ago where a young girl was, I think, debilitated for life. I mean, brain damage and stuff, all because it was a very young person driving the vehicle, the golf cart, and turned too quickly and they fell out. So what is your action, or what do you recommend we do? Because it's like, you see it, but it's like.
Yeah. Well, for any state-maintained roadway where you have an off-road vehicle or a golf cart, it's not tagged, it's not registered, there's no insurance on it, there is a Chapter 20 violation, a traffic violation that goes with that, multiple violations. Depending on how old the driver is, depends on the actions we take. Deputies obviously can use discretion in that case. If this is something that they can have a talk with mom and dad and put the golf cart or the dirt bike or the four-wheeler away. We're not trying to necessarily ruin a kid's life by charging them. But at the same point in time, if it's a repeat offender, they're driving recklessly, anything like that, we can absolutely take enforcement action in those instances where they're on that state-maintained roadway, just like we would if they were driving down Newtown Road. Our deputies will need to see that, so what we encourage everybody is the same thing we've always encouraged. If you see something like that in your neighborhood and you're not okay with that, go ahead and call us. You can call 911. You won't get in trouble. And we'll have a deputy come check that area. Now, as far as I know that Ms. Amos and our office are working together on the ordinance language that will specifically affect our enforcement ability on the trails, because there has to be some very finite language in that allows us to take that criminal enforcement action. But overall, on our state-maintained roadways, Chapter 20 traffic offenses would be the best route to take there. But once again, each situation is going to be different depending on the circumstances. So we don't want to necessarily punish kids for being kids, but we also want to keep our roadways safe for your residents, our residents, and their families.
When you say state-maintained roadways, that would include Village of Marvin maintained roadways as well, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, if we can enforce speeding or a stop sign violation on it, then we can enforce, non-registration or a non-registered vehicle being on the roadway. So.
Well, the numbers don't lie that are in here,
Yes,
and the speed limits have come down
Yes, sir.
significantly, and we see that month over month. So whatever you're doing, and I do know that I get pings and stuff saying where the traffic checks are at, which is okay, but you're doing your job and it's doing. But the other thing too that is noticed on the overall report is that I know some of the things that you're doing and they're working, with like the car break-ins. We went through a flurry of the car break-ins. We had 0, and we're starting to see all the work that everyone's doing with this, and it's reflective in the numbers, so the numbers don't lie. But you're doing, I mean, what the department is doing is showing here, and great job, so thanks for, and I know it's not just, I know our deputies do a lot of stuff here, and they do a lot of the patrol stuff, but I'm starting to see and hear that there's more stuff, there's more collaboration with other municipalities and other, you know, deputies coming in to help. And I'm sure our deputies do the same thing, so.
Yes, sir. We absolutely encourage folks to, when your dedicated deputies are not here, and I want to make sure that this is understood, they're here during your peak call times, but times that wouldn't be considered a peak call time. The sheriff has specifically asked our county patrol squad to make sure there's at least one deputy stationed out here in this area that can quickly respond and provide assistance where needed. But I appreciate the compliment, I appreciate the kind words, and it goes without saying that we couldn't do it without your support. So it's a group effort, and so far, knock on wood, we're doing a pretty good job as a team. So we're just going to keep it up, and we just once again encourage the public to call us if they need us.
Yeah, one other stat that I'd like to point out that I've seen continue to increase as well is the number of ride-throughs in subdivisions.
Yes, sir.
And I've had this conversation with our officers, but just that I've noticed that visibility, and I live in a neighborhood that's, you know, on the end of a cul-de-sac in the woods up against the South Carolina line. But I can say a couple of times a week now, I see them, you know, patrolling right by my house. And I see the numbers increasing in those, you know, but just the extra visibility, I think, means a lot too, and appreciate that.
Yes, sir. We continue to make sure we do those type of extra patrols. And I'll also stress again that if your residents have not downloaded the Sheriff's Office free smartphone application, it is free. We don't request any information from you. In there is a very easy to fill out residential check form. If you're going to go on vacation, go ahead and just knock that out for us. And in between calls for service, our deputies will come check your house. They'll walk around it, so you may get an alarm activation, but it's just a deputy walking around. You can tell us what cars should be there, what lights should be on, kind of your preferences. That way, you know, if you say there should be a white truck in the driveway and we pull up and see a white truck and a red car, well, there may be a problem. We need to look into that further. So a lot of resources out there, and we just want people to know about them and use them. So once again, it involves all of us coming together to be successful, and I appreciate the support.
Mr. Mayor, if you don't mind for a second, I just wanted to mention, because I think a lot of people are here for what is perceived to be a public hearing. There's not a public hearing on the agenda. I don't know if you all knew that, but I just wanted to make sure that y'all are aware there's no public hearing. I think majority of the comments that we heard were for the rezoning development proposal that is going to occur in the next couple months for the adjacent property beside Village Hall. There's a planning board meeting next week, March 18th. Is that on the agenda? Do you know? Okay, so it's on the agenda for the planning board. I don't think the planning board is planning to take action. This board, the council, will not see that development until likely May. So I just wanted to make sure y'all were aware of that. I didn't know if y'all were aware.
There is not going to be any decision till the week of May, the month of May? We don't really know.
I don't know when it is. I just wanted to let you guys know in case y'all were planning to stay. So, I mean, you're more than, like I said, you were more than welcome to make a comment like you did. I'm just letting y'all know if y'all were staying for a public hearing. There is no public hearing. So just letting y'all know.
So no decisions are going to be made tonight on anything, because there is no public hearing, so.
That's fine. I didn't know if y'all were waiting, is what I was saying. If y'all were waiting, there's not a public hearing. So I was just letting y'all know.
Okay. It's not been scheduled.
And Chris,
Yeah, I can't hear anything.
Hold on, Kim, hold on. He realizes that he's coming up.
Thank you.
So regarding the conditional zoning application, it is currently still being reviewed by planning board. It is on the agenda for next week. However, it is not, planning board will not be taking any action at that meeting, meaning that they are not making any formal recommendation to either approve, deny. Once a recommendation is made by planning board, which tentatively would be the April planning board meeting, then a public hearing is scheduled, which is tentatively for May. That is when it comes in front of council, and council will conduct the public hearing. And then after the public hearing has been conducted, they can then vote on the application. But until then, it's still in planning board. And once a public hearing is scheduled, it will be posted. All property owners within 150 feet will also get notified via mail that a public hearing's been scheduled. Other than that, if you have any questions regarding the application, be happy to answer it.
Thank you, Hunter.
Because that is legally what is required per the state statutes.
Okay, we're gonna.
Yeah, this is not,
We're gonna continue the meeting.
thank you.
We follow state statutes when it comes to meetings and when we present them, so if there was any confusion, our apologies for that, but I don't think there was any intent to be confusing. So there is no public hearing tonight. No decisions are made on any development or anything like that, correct? That's what I understood as well, so, okay. Moving on. Planning board report?
Yeah, so I might be able to fill in a gap here. The February 18th Planning Board met. There were 3 specific items that we covered. The first thing was a motion was passed 5-2 on the zoning map amendment consistent with the recommendations, with the goals of the 2020 land use plan. This specifically involved, right off of Marvin School Road, the Robinwood subdivision, of which there's subdivision wanting to be done on 7 acres of land. That was a 5-2 passing by the planning board for that amendment. The second thing was the ROMS Investment LLC that had to do with this particular project everybody's talking about, and they saw the elevations, the planning board saw the elevations for the first time, and the plan, of which it was just something they were exposed to. So there was some discussion, but it wasn't anything other than this was the elevations that are being planned. The last thing was reviewing the 2025 community survey. That is to get feedback from the public, and evidently that's going to be handled also by the PRNG board to look over some of those recommendations that were made, so that was just communication. That was the planning board meeting.
All right, any questions for Bob? All right, moving on, PRNG board report. John.
So at the PRG report, you folks were there for the first part of the meeting. We did have our joint meeting with council, and we went over a couple of topics that we discussed at that earlier, so I won't kind of go through that again. But in addition to that, we did have some conversation about the survey questions. So we are continuing to work on those, and Austin spoke and shared a little bit about the timeline that we're trying to work with. And I think we're at the point where we pretty much have most of that done. We did continue to look over our existing PRG master plan, and I shared with PRG the intent that council and Hunter are looking to do this more as a comprehensive plan, including, a number of other aspects of the planning for the whole village as a whole. And they were good with that, but continued to kind of review the current things, so what pieces we do want in the new one, that they will be included.
Any questions for John?
I also did share with them, Hunter had provided us the 90% built-out version of the Village Hall Park, so I did kind of share that information with them as well.
Okay. Any other questions? Moving on to event planning report. Tyler?
All right, so April 12th will be the Easter egg hunt out at Marvin Eford Park. 10 a.m. will be 3 years and under, 10:45 will be 4 to 6 year olds, 11:30 will be 7 years old and older. All while that's happening from 10 to 12. We'll have a petting zoo. We'll have our friends from the Metro Fun Bus will be out there. So it'll be a good morning, good day, some family fun out at the park. At 1 p.m., we'll have our final egg hunt, and this will be more of a slower paced, quieter. This is for anyone who would benefit from less people, kind of a sensory friendly, won't be as loud, won't be as chaotic. Anyone who's interested in that, that will be at 1 p.m. At Eford Park. So that's the egg hunt. Then April 26th, we'll do Marvin Day. That'll be from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. at Eford Park. We'll have live music, huge kids fun zone, animal exhibits, food trucks, the whole 9 yards. It'll be a great day. So come join us April 26th. So then lastly, our 5K will be on May 31st. It'll be the same route as we've done in the past from Marvin Elementary School as the start. That'll be at 9 a.m. and here in the next coming weeks, look for that registration to start popping up. You will have to sign up. That is a pre-registering is required for that event. And then you'll get more information with that. So any questions on events?
Just make sure you work with Austin on getting that message out to the schools.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Tyler. Coffee with council. I was there. I was a few minutes behind, 15 minutes. Jamie, you want to take it? I think we have a guest that was here.
Our guest speaker today.
We appreciate you coming out. One person came, and
Yes.
we spent more than an hour with you, I believe.
Yeah. So again, it was a good conversation. He shared same concerns at Coffee with Council that he did today, and certainly we hear those concerns, and we hear everyone's concerns that live close by and in the neighborhood. So, but you know, we shared. You know, he shared his concerns, and I think in turn, we kind of shared, you know, where we sit. I think that there's this misconception out there that council, we're in the development business, and we're not, because we're not in the development business. The property owner is the one that's in. They determine what they do with their property, and I explained that, and we had a good conversation around that, and we certainly hear it, what everyone's saying, but again, as you know, we communicated with him, we are not in the development business. We don't develop properties. It's up to that. We provide the ordinances and the guidelines to what individual property owners can and cannot do with their property. So, but we hear, you know, we heard his concerns, and we certainly appreciate him coming out and be a part of that. And as we said to him as well, I mean, and to anyone that's here, anyone that's listening, that helps when people share their concerns. And I think the other recommendation that I told you that we talked about is, and I think the HOA president was here tonight as well. So, but to have, there's going to be several steps in order to go through this, and that's having time with, you know, like Hunter said, there's going to be a time with the person that owns the property to have a public period with them, and you know, certainly voice your concerns, and have someone who is representative of the neighborhood to come with a set of questions and a set of concerns and voice those concerns. So it's, we're hopeful that what you will see is a process. And I think part of the concern was that things had happened in the past that you felt as though you weren't a part of. But we can only have the meetings, we can only have the public comment periods, we can set those up and do those, but it's up to everyone else to attend those and be a part of those. So thank you for coming out, and again, That's what Coffee with Council is for. And we certainly appreciate you sharing your thoughts, and hopefully we answered your questions as well.
And it's sometimes hard to put the toothpaste back in the tube. However, I think we talked about the involvement from here on, following the process and being involved in, because what we do have a say in is uses. And I think that's important when we talk about, changes or ability to change zoning and stuff, what actual uses, and we're trying to protect ourselves. I can almost 100% assure you, we all bought for the same reasons you guys bought in here, and what we create, what we have here. We are limited by the state to some extent and what we can and can't do, but I'd rather have a say in something than not having a say at all. And that's happened in this village where we had a prior council over 10 years ago decided they did not want to work with the developer, and you got a 3-story storage facility right across from Kohl's. I would have preferred, if I was on council at that time, that I would have had some sort of decision. We were there for the meetings to voice our opinions and how we were against it, but it was really not our call at the end. It was the county's call. So those things can happen. They can't happen. So uses are very important as we go forward and trying to figure out how we put this together. Thank you, Jamie. WUMA report. Andy, you want to take this, or you want? You were there. I was there. I was the delegate. I think the only one missing was Stallings and Weddington. There wasn't much on the agenda. We talked about upcoming meetings, and I think, which I alerted them that there was a conflict with all the state legislators that were coming in. They've all slowly have respectfully canceled being at our meeting. I think we still plan to hold it here in.
So we'll have the county manager here.
The county manager will be here, but all the state representatives, we're going to schedule a different time because it conflicted
May?
with a dinner event.
Is it May, I think?
I thought it was March.
March.
Yeah. So we're hosting the
March
next
27th.
WUMA here, and instead of 4 o'clock, it's going to be at 7 o'clock.
Yes, Ptolemy will be here and take minutes for you all. But yeah, you guys are here, WUMA is here at March 27th, 7 p.m. I don't think you guys have, I don't think WUMA has rescheduled the state legislators yet. I know you were talking about possibly
Tentatively
May in
May, yeah.
Waxhaw.
Yeah, I think it's gonna, they're figuring that out, when and where they all can meet, but they all determined that this was not gonna be the meeting that we were hoping for.
Yeah.
So you won't have access, to any state. So I encourage council to come too, even though, we don't have an official meeting, but to give it a chance to talk to your state legislator when we do have that meeting. And I believe it's gonna be, they're trying to arrange it for Waxhaw, if I'm not mistaken.
That would be the May meeting. That was the last thing that I heard. but-
Yeah.
but you gu-
That's
but
what
I
they're
think
shooting for.
You guys still have to confirm schedules with the state legislators.
Yeah, and I think the biggest surprise that we were pointing out, we all go through what's going on in each other's towns. I think the biggest surprise was us learning that our healthcare benefits for staff have to be revisited by, with companies, and I know Jill is on that. There were a lot of municipalities that weren't aware of that, so good news for that. And then I also let Waxhaw know that the mayor has approached me to get a team together, assembled, and we're trying to get the right people to talk about how we can move the roundabout forward for over on Bonds Grove. Other than that, am I missing anything?
That's pretty much it. There wasn't a whole lot.
Yeah, not much on the agenda other than just a recap. All right, moving on. Consent agenda. So you guys all got a chance to look at that. I'll need a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Further discussion? All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. No public hearings, unfinished business. Next up, we have discussion of the conceptual plan for the Wounded Heroes Courtyard.
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to make a motion to table this discussion to the work session, trying to get some more information on this.
for the courtyard?
Yes.
Okay. Any objection? All right, so we will table that.
He did make a motion.
We need to
do
make a
that.
motion to table the discussion of the conceptual plan for Wounded Heroes Courtyard.
So moved.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Hearing none, motion passes. New business.
There's no new business.
Okay. Open topics. Anyone? Kim? Christina, real quick, because I did not see it come up. I think you sent me an email, so make sure I was copied. It's just more of a information for next week. The county is hosting municipalities to talk about kind of what we're talking about with the Heritage District. So I think it's an opportunity for council. He said invite anyone we want. I think you have a conflict. It's next Wednesday. But for some reason, I just looked, and maybe it's a IT thing, but I have not gotten the emails for a little bit. But she supposedly sent me one, and I did not get it on my end, my particular email.
It may be caught in your spam, but it was from Union County, and it's a economic development team. Their economic development team's hosting a municipal summit. All Union County municipal elected bodies and management is invited to come. It's next Wednesday at 8 a.m.
7:30 is coffee and donuts, and 8 o'clock gets started. Now, that's the same day we have, I think, another meeting that are scheduled throughout the day at 1 o'clock on the 19th, so I may have to go to a later one, but I just wanted to put that out for you. So you did put the email out, correct? All right, so just check your emails if it's something that you think you want to attend as a council member, to be at that for, just to learn more about what kind of services the county could provide when it comes to economic development, that kind of thing. So,
Please let me know if you plan to attend that, because I may need to put out a notice.
yeah, I'm gonna, if I'm in town, I will plan to, and I think, Christina, you said you would be there as well, so. But I'm just, that was the only open topic I had for. Review of action items.
Okay, not really much. John is going to take the blue light emergency system to the PRG board for feedback. I'm going to move forward with the information sharing with Union County Public Schools, and I'll talk to them about Peach Jar. We're tabling the Wounded Heroes to the work session. I think that's about it, actually.
I'll look into the light trailer to see if we can get the data. I'm not 100% sure, but I'll ask Deputy Swan.
All right, review of Mayor Pro Kim's list.
I'm good for tonight.
Okay. Any questions from anyone? Council comments. Kim, you want to start?
I'm good, thank you.
John.
Just tonight, we first started on our budget journey, and in the face of the revaluation, that is something that is really going to affect many different people in Marvin in many different ways. Between council and mayor, we have 7 different members here that are from 6 different subdivisions. And the actual revaluations, I looked at all of ours, range anywhere from about 40% to an increase of about 98%. So, you know, when you think about the average being 60, even at revenue neutral, as Christina mentioned, you know, there's going to be people that have lower and there's going to be people that have higher. So, you know, I especially noticed, I started to look around different neighborhoods to see how they were affected as a whole. One of the things that I'll note is that any properties, even if they're, you know, 40 years old homes, things like that, but if they have 2 acres or more, some of those numbers were astronomical. That's where you get closer to, I think someone mentioned 111%. These are neighborhoods that were grouped together like Providence Estates, Marvin Estates, Valhalla. And what I would say for my neighborhood, Providence Estates, we have a number of residents there that have lived there for 40 years, bought the land at, you know, $2,000 an acre, you know, for $10,000, put a 2,400 square foot house, maybe, I think that was the limit we had at the time. that's now worth over $1 million. But these folks are retired now. They're on fixed incomes. And I'm especially sensitive to folks like that. And to the extent that we continue to set our goal as close to revenue neutral as we can and still be a good functioning service to the citizens of Marvin, I think that's an important part for us to consider on that journey, because it's not always just how it's affecting yours. We're all getting affected the same way by this, but some people are more affected by others.
Thank you, John. Andy?
Well, to elaborate on John's comments, yes, everybody's feeling the pain, and we can do what we can do on the local level here, but the big concern that I'm concerned with is the 58.8 cents that we pay to the county for all the different services that we get, education and all that. That's where the biggest impact on our tax bill is going to come from. We are roughly about 10-12% of the entire bill for our municipal taxes. The rest of it goes to the county. So as we look at these revals, that's going to be our biggest impact, and I'm going to be looking to the county to see what they're going to do on their end. Costs go up every year. Things cost more. Every 2 years, the county comes to us with a bond that gets passed every 2 years for schools. That adds to the county tax every year. So these are things that we need to look at as a county as well. That we're paying almost 59 cents to the county. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody is affected the same way in the county. Some are even more affected than we are. Wingate actually came in at 71% average increase. So they're the winner of the highest increase in the entire county. But Western Union County got hit pretty hard with the revals. We're not the only ones. Weddington is right there with us, Waxhaw, all of us. So we're all trying to figure out what we're going to do. Every municipality, I'm sure this will be discussed at WUMA, how everybody is doing with their respective budgets and how things are going to be affected. I know last year Stallings was having a really tough time because of their expenditures. They have a police department that they fund. They were having a hard time making their budget come together. So I know it's tough for everybody. Everybody has to squeeze every last bit out of every penny. So we will certainly, as a council, be working hard over budget season. We will not be making any rash, instantaneous decisions. We are going to deliberate over the time that we have and figure out what's going to be the best, and as we do every year. Thank you.
Thanks, Andy. Bob?
I concur with you, John. As we go through this budget, we need to doge ourselves. What do you think?
Drop the mic moment there. Jamie?
How do I follow that up? No, I mean, great points with that. I do want to thank Union County. I certainly didn't want them here, because I know I got hit, and as everyone else in this room. But do want to thank Union County for coming in and providing a presentation. Unfortunately, it was not as well attended as I would have hoped it would have been. They did provide a lot of information that I know people have questions about. I had questions about, but they answered them. And they had a good presentation. They also just, made it where they're doing their job. The state mandates it. It's a state mandate. They went through it. The numbers they come up with, they talked to them. They justified them as best they could. And it was a lengthy, as they presented, it was a very lengthy process. So it's not something they just kind of threw against the wall to see what would happen. But now we're going to have to deal with what they've come up with. And I know that this council is going to do everything we can to be as as tight with what we're going to do as possible, while also not, we were just talking about the budget. We need to tighten our belts as much as we can without sacrificing services and things that we do on a regular basis to keep Marvin looking, feeling, acting the way it does. And so we got our work cut out for us, and we will certainly do our commitments to the constituencies that we're going to do everything we can, because we understand we're all being impacted by it. So, but again, thanks to Union County for making the presentation, whether we liked it or not, and so.
Jamie, if I could, this is a copy of the
Yes.
presentation, and it is available on the county website. So anybody that did miss it, that wants a better explanation of the kind of underlying numbers, all of that, it goes town by town. It is available online at the county website.
Yeah, I would echo your thoughts. I would like to thank Union County for taking the time to come out. They were well prepared, again, very sparsely attended, quite frankly, and I think we were trying to figure out, like most people would, what ways you go about challenging some of these, because, they give you that opportunity to do it. So there are opportunities. I'd encourage everyone to look into what they talked about on how to challenge any of these new revals. Like to thank staff, obviously, for your work in the past number of weeks, and also Sheriff's Department. I think we're working together with you guys and trying to create funding there for you, because we saw positive results in our last meeting. I think in the work session, we talked about certain funds going to extra services and stuff, and I think what the results came from that, I think it got our board to want to keep moving forward with that and having that available to us as long as we can. So we thank you for that. Trying to think what else slipping my mind, but that's okay. Anyways, thanks for coming out too. Jamie and I at the Coffee with Council, we talked a lot about following the process, but also getting involved, and I really encourage you. When you get the dialogue, the easiest time is usually in Coffee with Council. Unfortunately, it's just with a couple council, but I'd take that any day. There are some upcoming meetings. Please, if you're not on the website, get signed up with Austin. Make sure you're on the website. We heard that at the one Coffee with Council previous to that they didn't have any of the information. So we can't get that information unless you provide it to us, to our clerk. And
There is a sign-up form on the website.
There's a sign-up form on the website.
There's a
So
link on the
We
homepage.
can't guess at who's there, but the information's out there. I would stay involved, and I appreciate everyone who came out today and everyone who shared their views on what's happening, and stay involved and be involved, especially when it comes to uses and what we want this village to look like. With that, I think we're moving into closed session. All right. Am I allowed to make the motion? All right. So I'd like to make a motion to recess into closed session pursuant to NCGS 143-318.11A5 to instruct staff on negotiating the price of other material terms of a proposed contract for the acquisition of real property by purchase, option, exchange, or lease. Motion's on the table.
So
All those
moved.
that approve? All that approve?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. We're in closed session. Thank you.